Welcome to the Innovation Cafe. I'm Gary, your friendly neighborhood inventor, and today I want to talk with you about a really hard lesson I learned, and it's a really brief one, but when your patent lawyer says you have to enable things in your specification, pay attention to them. So, little background, here's what a specification is. When you apply for a patent, it's really a document to teach people. Right? So it's intended as a teaching document, and it's really weird actually when you see someone else's patent application get rejected over yours. I'll read something like, looking at claim 4, Schuster teaches this, and therefore it renders your claim obvious. And it always is very weird to me, but that's because they really are teaching documents, and you're supposed to teach the world how to do the invention. And in order to be able to claim the invention, you have to fully enable it. And what I learned is it's more than just a paragraph. So this was back in 1999 or 2000. And I was, being a lawyer on the one hand and managing a server farm on the other hand simultaneously. And I just decided to do a thought experiment. I took my Palm Pilot, because that's what we had before smartphones, and I thought, what if this Palm Pilot had the power of that server farm? Now, this is an amazing kind of thing that inventors do, which is you ask these what if questions because you can kind of see the future coming. So I saw the future coming. It was going to be, we had Moore's Law, doubling of computing power, halving of prices of processors. I was seeing, battery energy density going up, storage going up, and, we had it was becoming clear that we were going to have pretty fast wireless internet. So I'm playing this game, really. If those things are all here, what cool stuff could I invent? And so I invent what I called a listening PDA, which for everyone younger than me, PDA is personal digital assistant, not a public display of affection. Although a listening public display of affection is itself something interesting that I can't figure out. But this is a personal digital assistant. And, imagine I jammed a whole server farm worth of power in there. Imagine unlimited bandwidth, unlimited battery life. Just what could you do with a crazy device that could do all kinds of stuff? Well, I currently have one. I have one. This has probably about as much power as that entire server farm had in the year 2000. So, I guess the future right that's where the future was going. So I do all these disclosures where it's listening to the conversations you have, and in the background it's looking up data, so that way when you picked up the phone or the Palm Pilot back in the day, it would already have, and the example I used was you go to Circuit City, now bankrupt, to buy a DVD player, which no one buys anymore. So this is an old invention, right? And it's listening to you have this conversation with the salesperson, and when you pull the PDA out of your pocket, you can see there are reviews for the players you were talking with the salesperson about. And, they had all kinds of other features, but I thought, it was getting late. I'd been drafting this, patent disclosure for the patent lawyers for days and days, and I had this idea. I thought, wow, how cool would it be if while this thing's listening, if it hears music, it will fingerprint the music and send the fingerprint off to a server where there's matching fingerprints of those songs and identify the song for you. That would be really cool. And so now I was capable of enabling it right then at that moment. I had the entire invention in my head. It was easy. I could have done something called constructive reduction to practice, which is you don't need to build the thing if you provide the blueprints basically in your patent specification for how someone else could build it. So I'm like, okay, I'm in business. But I was exhausted. So I just wrote it up in a paragraph. Because I figured, so much of this stuff, it's just putting together some pieces, and the pieces are complicated, but it's knowing how to put them together, and, I bet you that's enabled enough. Well, it wasn't. And that is frustrating because, a decade later, around comes Shazam, and everyone's doing music fingerprinting, and, now if I'm listening to music and I pull my phone out of my pocket, I'll be damned if you don't see the name of the song and the artist on the front of my phone. It's a Pixel. It's a Google Pixel. Not a sponsored ad, but hey, if you want to throw some pixels my way, go for it, Google. But this technology is now everywhere. And so had I written more than a paragraph, basically what the paragraph said was, it's always listening. It fingerprints the music using well-known fingerprinting techniques for music. It sends the fingerprint to a server. The server responds back, and you have your music identified. It wasn't enough. I needed to talk about, here's how you actually do the fingerprinting. Here's how you're going to communicate to the server. Here's how you filter out the noise that's happening in the background. I mean, there were a lot of things that I should have enabled. So the trick here is dimensionalization of patents. When I write a patent application now, and that is a costly lesson for me. So when I now write a patent specification and a patent disclosure, I include details. Here's exactly how you do it. And you might want to do it this different way, so I'm dimensionalizing it. And here's how you do it the different way. As much detail as possible. And it turns out that, I'll talk about it in another presentation, but there's this case called Alice and a bunch of other cases that happened after that really narrowed patentable subject matter, and it made it much harder to get a patent on something that doesn't get really into the weeds with how you build it. So it turns out that not only was my patent lawyer right to say you got to fully disclose it in the specification and fully enable it, but he actually had to do even more than he was advising me to do at the time. So that's my big lesson. It's the reason I don't have a yacht right now. I have a feeling that patent would have been quite valuable, but lesson learned. I mean, lessons aren't free, and there's one. So this is Innovation Cafe. I'd love for you to hit the like button. I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button. Send it to your friends. We are going to be really enabling a generation of people to be their true inner creative selves. So from the Innovation Cafe in my living room, signing off, Gary, your neighborhood inventor. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you at the next video.